What is up, humans and mutants alike? My name is Kyle. We are going back through our old catalog and re uploading them onto YouTube in what we are calling Podcast of X Classics. So enjoy. What is up? My name is Kyle. I am with Danny. This is Podcast of X. We are here once again live. I am staring at Danny's head. It is quite a head, if you will.
And I am staring at the reflection of Kyle in my computer screen. It is quite a reflection, if you will.
And we are talking today about Marauders.
Half pint. I'll show him.
Now, last week we talked about a little bit of X-Men issue number 1. We got to meet the Summers family. We got to see a mission go down. But this week we're going to see something a little different, a little lighter. We're also introduced to a story that is not done by Hickman himself.
This territory for us.
New territory, indeed. We are introduced to the Marauders via Jerry Dugan. Now, what is your familiarity with Jerry Dugan? Have you read his Deadpool, or have you read his...
I have not read anything by him. I'm not familiar with him in the least bit, so this was definitely my first foray, if you will, into Jerry Dugan. And it was definitely something different.
I'm very unfamiliar with his work. I did read a little bit of his Deadpool, but it didn't stand out amongst the Deadpool stuff to me.
I heard that that's what he's most famous for, is that people really liked his Deadpool run. And considering he writes in a more lighthearted approach, I guess that would lend itself quite well to Deadpool.
Yes. So it's going to be exciting to watch him tackle this along with these other very darker stories that we're going to be discussing throughout the Dawn of X storyline.
Yeah, and we're seeing a complete rebranding of what the Marauders really were in the Marvel mythos. This Marauders team is pretty much the closest take on like a legit X-Men version of the Marauders team. Like if the Marauders were just a, if you will, a special ops group or a smuggling group, if you will, for the X-Men in a proper sense. And you're not getting your Sinister's Marauder, though Pyro is still there. He's the linking chain, if you will, to the original Marauders. But aside from that, it is a vastly new team.
Yes, very, very new. This is not Mr. Sinister's Marauders whatsoever. We're getting a very, very different take on it. But
not your grandma's Marauders.
not your grandma's Marauders, folks. So strap in. But yes, we start off with Kitty Pryde, Storm, Nightcrawler, and a few others, and we're next to a portal, and they're all just gathering here, and they're bringing some mutants home. One of those mutants is Kitty Pryde, and
we find ourselves at the Krakoan Central Park portal.
Yes.
Hickman established during the Houses and Powers of X series that there were multiple Krakoa portal locations that were meant strategically for bringing in mutants. The one with the Central Park location is the one they're going to lead off with in Marauders, and that's how we start with Kitty's story. We do a bit of a jump back because this is not current time. They're going to explain that how Kitty essentially ended up being a part of the Marauders, and this is a bit of a time jump backwards to the first time she tries to actually go to Krakoa.
Yes, and Storm and Nightcrawler invite her into the portal, and she's like, I'll see you there. And as she walks through the portal, she is denied access and runs straight into it like a brick wall.
Base plant and all, like blood splatter. It's like, if any of us have ever ran into anything, it's that moment.
It's pretty brutal.
You just don't expect it, and then your face is just met with flat surface. It was a good illustration too, because there's like a nice wave of just blood like echoing around her face and just complete discomfort in her expression.
Yes. Now, Krakoa lets in whoever it wants to, but ultimately it's supposed to let in all mutants. Now, this begs the question: is she a mutant? Is this suggesting that she's not a mutant, or is this suggesting that Krakoa is trying to deny her access for a reason, perhaps?
Maybe as the defense mechanism, like it deems there's a threat for some reason or some sort of issue that could be detrimental to mutantdom in some greater sense. Like Krakoa is a very philosophically deep but also unique creature because it doesn't function as like a human would in the sense of how it would deal with issues. It looks at a grander scale. So it could be noting something about Kitty here that is impacting the greater story and putting mutants at jeopardy in a way. And that could be why it's barring her, but we get no lead on that, and that story is still a thread that is up in the air currently. But it's now been laid down that Kitty cannot use the portals. She is banned from her portal use.
And so, because she does not have access to Krakoa, she has to travel via boat. And she's traveling via boat. But before that, we get like a
dossier on
Yeah.
Sinister's weird little menacings and like notations. It's an interesting little graphic where they break down just like a couple little notes about the kind of what's going on with Sinister and how he's tied to this a little bit as well, which is cool because it flushes out his character and kind of his greater plans and his secret workings in the background.
Yes, indeed, and it kind of goes through also what Kitty's been up to as she's
Oh
traveling.
yeah, I got
through
ahead of
that.
myself. That's
Yeah,
later
you
on
got
in
a
the
little,
chapter.
you got a
Yeah.
little ahead, but
That's it. This part is Kitty's day to day. That the next graph we get into will be the
yeah. So this is kind of her day to day as she's traveling. Lockheed's doing some crazy stuff. She's wondering why she brought so much booze back, etc., etc. And as she's traveling, she finally makes it to Krakoa after Lockheed viciously destroys the seagull.
Yeah, he just obliterates that thing. Like it's funny because we get let in with this little like log of her sea travels. So it's like you never picture like Kitty as like someone with like a bit of a like a sailor or like with seafaring legs or anything like that. She's always been kind of like the heart and soul child of like the X-Men and what they've been building over the years. But now we get, Sea Captain Kitty here going around cruising the sea with Lockheed, who's just eating seagulls to pass the time and sharing the wings with Kitty, who couldn't be less than thrilled to receive this gift from, it's like when you get a dead rat from a cat, you're like, cool, buddy. I mean, I get you're helping me out, but it's gross.
Although if you're lost at sea, having Lockheed around would be so helpful. Go get me some protein.
He's like an alien dragon who has a fire breath. He can fly around, so he can navigate. He has a greater intelligence, so he could help you with that stuff. But not only could he bring the food to you, he could literally cook it right there.
Yes, but we make it to Krakoa, and she conveniently docks right near the portals where the exit portals are, and she walks right up to the portal and pushes it and confirms that she still cannot go through any portals. And when this happens, she is met with Iceman, the man of ice.
Can we note real quick though the motif they use in like the art style for like the anime like kind of like stare that she gets? Because she's like, well, maybe if I can't go through the portal coming in, maybe I can go coming out.
Yeah.
And she's trying and she's like pushing against it and everything. And this kid just shows up. This little mutant kid is like eating ice cream and is just like, I heard about you. You're the mutant who can't use the portals. What's that about? And she turns around and glares at him with like that little sparkle in her eye that you get like in a lot of like
very anime-esque.
It's like an anime trope kind of thing, and it's really funny to see it in an X-Men comic. But she's just like conveying so much evil, like, you know what, kid, just back off. I'm dealing with shit right here. Get out of my face. I don't want to deal with this. Yes. Been through enough, okay? I had to spend like 10 years of my life inside a giant space bullet. Just leave me alone. Oh man. Good times. But then Iceman rolls up and he's all just chipper because he can use the portal whenever he wants. So none of this bothers him.
This isn't a problem for him. Yeah, at all. Geez. And as Iceman and Kitty are talking, we are met with the reason why Kitty or the reason for Kitty's adventures, kind of Logan. Logan comes up and is like, "My supplies are here, finally."
He just like runs past both of them and is like, "Sweet Jesus, my supplies!" Finally, just dives into the ocean and is like swimming all the way out to the like ported ship by himself, just to unload on all the stuff that you find out. Kitty's big secret mission was to load
Yes.
Logan up on his ship.
Yeah. You got some whiskey, you got some beer.
We
You
got
got
Logan's
okay.
shopping
Yes,
list.
literally get a page of Logan's shopping list. We get some ribs.
Canadian Club whiskey. That
Not
just sounds so fancy. And
it's
bougie.
actually not. It's pretty low end, right? Canadian Club whiskey.
I guess
It comes
but
at a
it sounds fancy, like
Yeah.
members only club jackets.
suds.
I get. Oh, all right. I guess then it is more your generic run. It just sounds better. It's like the highlight.
Cubano sandwiches, though,
Oh,
it sounds amazing.
The Cubano sandwiches. Those are fancy. Those are good sandwiches. If you ever get a chance, folks, to get Cubano sandwiches, do that before your life ends.
Yes, please do that.
Bucket list that shit right now.
So amazing, so
I didn't know
delightful.
about them and just stumbled upon it, and a friend was like, "Yeah, try it. We're here. This place, it serves them. Get down." And I was like, "All right, I'll try it." And sure enough, it lived up to its hype. Believe the hype on that one.
Believe the hype. So
Then we wanted some pomade and coffee.
yeah, some pomade, which is interesting. You didn't think that he would care that much about his hair, right?
Yeah, that's a kind of a bit of a classy thing, I guess. But I mean, look at his hair. How does it stay so spiky? Maybe that's the reveal. That's a little bit of a retcon to Wolverine. Is his hair is normally really like flat and goes down, but he gets that pomade and does his hair up all the time. Oh, the secret origin story of Wolverine's hair has been revealed.
Yeah. So he goes off, he wanders off, and then Iceman essentially bounces. He's just like, BRB, I'm out of here. And she's like, show off, I can't go through this, fuck you, you're an asshole. And as that happens, we are met with Emma Frost, who is telepathically talking to Kitty.
As if it was like some business lady who was walking around with like a jobber on her ear, and she's just trying to network while she's working and stuff.
Yeah.
She's like literally getting in a car as like a chauffeur, and she's just like going from work, and she's just chilling, talking with Kitty, handling errands while being a busy lady running her drug mogul empire.
How does this work? Her telepathic, like, this conference that's happening. Is Kitty actually sitting in this car? Or...
I think Kitty is mentally being projected in a way that is something that is only visual, I think, to Emma. I think this is supposed to be something like the visual representation of what Emma is seeing in her own mind. She's able to pull Kitty's consciousness to the car. Maybe kind of like something like how like they can use the astral plane for something like this to like communicate long distances. Maybe she's pulling Kitty's psyche out of the astral plane and putting it in the car in that weird manifestation, and then having a convo with it while they roll.
Yeah.
Or this is all just taking place in Kitty's head, and that's maybe more of what's going on. But it's interesting. I like the visual they used to represent it, as if they're just chilling next to each other talking, but really like hundreds of thousands of miles away.
Oh yeah. And essentially Kitty Pryde's just like, you son of a bitch, I'm in.
Yeah. It was like, I put together a team for some smuggling jobs.
I'm putting together a
team. You get
team.
a crew going. You can have a ship. And then Shadowcat's like, I am booking in, you son of a bitch. Let's get it together. I've always like, you kidding me? Get out of town. I've always wanted to be a ship captain. Oh, it was a good transition because really that's what Emma Frost serves as. Kitty's going to be the captain. Emma's going to be the handler for her crew and pretty much the one who's going to be orchestrating all of their excursions.
Yes. Yes, and we touched on this in House of X, where we learn that Emma will be running the operations of smuggling Krakoan stuff in, as well as helping smuggle X-Men out, mutants out of wherever they're smuggling the flowers into.
The flowers and mutants must flow.
Must flow just like the spice, people. It's all comes together.
But we get a nice little like breakdown of like kind of also the big happenings around the world with the reaction, because the Krakoan portals were strategically placed in a lot of areas where they would be viable for mutants and just the public in general to understand what's going on. And some of the portals are in a little more hairier locations. Like there's literally one with a military base built around it in Russia, and then there's another one where there's like a crazed habitat built around it of like anti-mutant like creatures that just chill and post out outside of it. Like some of these locations have been
Yeah.
kind of turned on their head because the rest of the world is just like, whoa, we're not cool with these mutant portals. And so they're handling it in their own unique and yet frightening ways.
Yeah, and it's showing that the portals aren't the end all solution to get all mutants out of other nations and into Krakoa. So there has to be other methods that need to be taken to help these people escape, essentially.
Yeah, they can't just rely on the portals 100%, because if they don't, there's going to be whole swaths of mutants that are left out to dry.
So many dry mutants. You don't want to try
Man,
mutants.
what those mutants more?
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh.
Gotta marinate them a little bit.
But now we're cutting into what we pick up with Iceman now.
Iceman, where he left, he BRB'd, he went through a portal, and we find out that he went to Russia, right? And we're at like this Russian dock, and we're met with what seems to be a nation state Russians. Now, the Russians during this time, it seems like they're being used as tools for the Russian government instead of being executed brutally.
Yes, it does seem like that it's much more of like a totalitarian like internment kind of situation. And especially you could tell that their stance by how they approach the Krakoan portal. I mean, Iceman comes out and the Russian officials are essentially just like, we want none of your people here. We don't want your portal here. Get the hell out of our country. We don't want to deal with any of this. Like any mutants we have are ours. And this goes back to kind of an older thing in like the stories where when originally mutants started popping up around the world, the Russians, the government specifically, was running around going like, we got to get them all. Like we got to get them. We got to put them into military training. We have to turn them into weapons. They needed to weaponize all the mutants. And that's what led like Colossus to join the X-Men, is essentially he was like, oh man, I got the Russians hounding me. And Charles is like, here's a way out. Join up with me and you won't have to deal with any of this. And that's pretty much what led that point. But where we are now is still the old mentality of a lot of that stuff.
Yeah.
And Iceman's here to try to shepherd what mutants are trying to get through. He's here in a cocky way of saying like, I'm a badass Omega level mutant. Like, let all the mutants through, no matter what. You know, let my people go. Get out of the way. And Russia's like,
all while eating a chicken leg.
Yeah, exactly. All while eating chicken leg. Arrogant as fuck, like it's nothing, and it's so funny because he gets the biggest reality check right here.
Oh yeah, and he just gets like assaulted by this guy, this makeshift Iron Man, and he's using mutant dampening armor, and we just see a naked Iceman, powerless, wearing sandals and underwear still.
Yeah, that was kind of funny. I didn't notice the sandals at first, and I was like, what? It's a weird fashion choice. Does that like make it easier to walk? Did the sandals get icy when he turns like Iceman, or I don't know how that works? But okay, maybe it makes it easier for him to slide on that ramp that he makes. Like the sandals get perfect like flatness and friction.
So
yeah, but reality is like brought up to Bobby right away because he's not just a dude who's naked and in sandals with. Well, he dropped his fried chicken, so he doesn't even have that.
He doesn't even have the chicken
Leroy
anymore.
Jenkins, so he doesn't even have chicken.
Nothing. You gotta have chicken, yeah. So he bounces. He's like, I'm out of here.
Yeah,
I can't.
He's like, the dive through the portal. Fuck it. Left a sandal behind and everything. Like, oh man, guys, this portal's crazy. Russians fucking serious, man. Like, what's their problem?
It's insane. And yeah, he comes back through the portal through Krakoa, and he's met with a drunk Kitty, just still hanging out at the dock, still hanging out near the boats, getting drunk, getting frustrated, it seems.
And he's bitter.
He's a little bitter.
Yeah, because she doesn't. Maybe it's like starting to impact her in a way where she started to think, well, maybe it doesn't want me here, or maybe it doesn't think I'm a mutant or something. But there's like something. It's like eating at her to the point where she's like, I'm just gonna drink to deal with it, and it seems to be working because she's like really embracing it and having a great time. just kind of hide the fact that she's a little bit bitter about this.
Yeah. Yeah, so after that we cut to Taipei, Taiwan, and we're met with a lady who's giving a speech essentially talking about her disappearing husband, and she said that the mutant stole her husband from him, and she's kind of inciting, kind of riling up this crowd a little bit against mutants and speaking for like the superiority of humanity.
She's like a political, what I would see is like a political red herring, where she's trying to create a problem where there isn't, or like a mislead the people, because like she's saying, oh, the portal showed up and took my husband away. Not, oh, maybe her husband was a mutant and then left of his own free will. Or maybe her husband never left at all. Maybe she had no husband. Maybe she works for the government proper, and the
Yeah.
government is just having her play this role. But it's definitely a lot of like, you could tell it's political subterfuge.
Oh yeah, she seems to be an agent provocateur of the sorts. Um, and as she's kind of riling up this crowd, after her speech, we're met with Bison,
No,
a
Bishop.
bishop. Why did I say bishop? We keep doing. We did this last week
Yeah.
or a few weeks ago.
Yeah, where I wanted to say Bastion and I kept saying Bison. It's the B words when they're spelled like that. Your mind wants to make that connection. But this version of Bishop is like awesome,
man,
though.
yeah.
I love how he comes out of the crowd wearing that like dark kind of noir style like detective
long
hat
coat,
and like
hats,
duster.
yeah.
Like he's all dressed up. I'm sure he's got his like normal Bishop garb underneath. That's a little more. I also think that the way they draw Bishop in this is a little more slimming, and how he's been drawn in the past.
Oh yeah,
He's kind of been drawn a lot like Cable, where they're like just super massive
Super
upper body,
bulky,
and
yeah.
tiny,
feet.
tiny hands. But this is a more proportioned like Bishop, and it definitely has like a much better design with the kind of style. But yeah, he pulls back the hat and he is like, "I'm investigating some bullshit, madam."
I hear your words, and I think they're a little bullshit.
Yeah.
What do you have to say about that?
Yeah, it's an interesting exchange of realities where it's like Bishop is not eating up any of that stuff, and he's putting her on the spot. But I mean, the crowd is not wavering; they're all riled up already, so they're just shouting slurs and just like pissed off and just all in a flutter over this.
Yes, and essentially the crowd is riled up. She's not having any of what Bishop's saying, and immediately he gets a hold of Xavier, kind of telling him what's going on. And then after that, we cut to the ocean, good old ocean, where we're probably going to be spending a lot of time in this series. And we're met with Kitty, Iceman, and Storm, and they're traveling along, and they find out that they have a stowaway, and that stowaway is none other than Pyro. And they specifically point out his accent to denote that this is the original Pyro. OG Pyro is back.
OG Pyro, the typical Marauder, Brotherhood of Mutants Pyro, the one that is different from the previous one that I think was killed off in the last couple of years. Not too recently, or I mean, very recently ago. But yeah, we get the classic Pyro, the very like kind of snarky, like very playful. It's hard to get the accent down in comic form, but I usually would just go off of how they portrayed him in the animated series from the 90s, the traditional. That's pretty much the voices for almost everyone.
Right.
Like Apocalypse sounds just like that for me. Pyro's got that. It's funny like British accent or funny
Australian accent. Yeah.
Do you remember when they released Pride of the X-Men, which was like that supposedly like a pilot series for the X-Men animated series originally, and Wolverine was like Australian?
Oh, I don't remember.
Watch that sometimes. It came out in like the late 80s. Download it and check it out or stream it. It's everywhere now. You could find that anywhere. It's a pretty easy one. It's short. I think it's only like a 40-minute like special or something. But Wolverine is Australian and it's very funny. It's
great.
It's a very unique voice, and I'm just thinking like, how did he become the Australian one? Pyro's the one who's like got the over the top Australian voice. Who messed this up? Someone didn't get the memo. He's here and he's on the team and he's part of Kitty's ragtag crew, which is quite a crew. I mean, that's a force right there.
Oh yeah.
Especially since like they reintroduced Kitty over the years. Like she's been more badass, but I mean, you've got Storm, and Pyro and Iceman all work together on your wannabe A team. Like that's great.
It's pretty strong team we got building up here. So Kitty, yeah, essentially is like, yo, join the team. Don't kill people, which is interesting to say to Pyro. Don't burn people. Please don't burn them.
He's like, that's all I know how to do.
Yeah,
You don't want me to give them the clamps? All
the
I know how to do
clamps.
is give them the clamps. Oh man.
But yeah, she throws down that first law of Krakoa: don't kill people, don't kill humans, and then was like, hey, we're going to Russia. Help us out. And we cut back to Russia, where we were not too long ago, where Pyro or Iceman and this other Russian mutant with the armor.
I don't know if he's a mutant.
He might not be a mutant.
I
He's
think
just
he might. Yeah, I think he might just be military personnel.
yes. And the team shows up. Now let's talk about this trip. How long do you think that took?
From Krakoa to Russia. I know that the Pacific version or Pacific Krakoan island, it's kind of like I think it's like in the center of the Pacific Ocean in a sense of cryptography. It's kind of like centered. So I don't think it's absurdly long, but I definitely know that traveling across sea to different continents is usually like a month thing.
Yeah, it's gonna take a while, right?
Like when people would take a boat from like England to New York, that was like, all right, this is what I'm doing for the next 2 months. So at least that's why I vaguely remember it. I mean, also they have advanced technology. Maybe Storm was helping out using her powers by manipulating nature, and that one might be another thing. But yeah, it seems like the travel time wasn't really explained or stressed in any way. And next thing you know, they're in Russia.
Yeah.
They're like, we're setting out to Russia, and we're there.
Yes. So they show up to Russia and instantly they start the assault, and you see Storm and Iceman kind of go for the assault, and then they lead the charge, but this the soldier with the mutant dampening armor kind of takes a hold, and he's even like, your cult's not welcome here to Mother Russia. But then we're met with Kitty, and Kitty goes crazy on these people. She starts off by instantly phasing through his armor and destroying all that technology. Now, Kitty, when she phases through technology, she could destroy all technology that she phases through.
It causes like a natural disruption in the technology. There's some sort of way that her body reacts to the technology. It gives off like almost something that would be like akin to like a EMP style like charge, but it's localized with her phasing through what she's touching.
Right.
And it just pretty much saps it, causes it not to work. Which usually works pretty foolproof, but then like Iron Man one time, I think it was during like Avengers vs. X-Men, she tried to phase through him and he like put countermeasures in his armor for it. And it like literally put her like unconscious.
Oh, nice.
But it usually works. It usually like on everyone else, it's like I'm gonna phase through it, and their equipment's useless.
Yes.
This is really cool. It's like kind of a neat like way to use your. This phasing is cool, but using it in that way actually gives it even more layer, and it's like wow, like her powers are actually quite versatile.
Yes. And we see that she starts phasing through all the soldiers, starts just taking out soldiers one by one, phasing through them. And then a tank starts rolling up on her. She phases through that tank, takes this man's smoke grenades and just takes them off, then leaves the tank, leaving him to just choke on his own gas.
But then right before that, before the tank even went down, she took the gun from those two guys.
Oh yeah.
And, like, phased it into their legs.
Phased straight into the leg.
And left it there.
Just left it there. Just a chunk of their leg phased.
Just shoved it in there. Said, you guys are now conjoined twins. This gun is stuck in both of your legs in a very bloody way. Like, even though this is like the tone of like the story is less, the violence is still up there.
Oh yeah.
I mean, it's still pretty on par with even some of the stuff we were seeing in the latter events of like Powers. But man, that gun in between both of the legs, the way they animate that is just it's a messy looking one. And it's really cool to see Kitty like this, because when she came back, when Eden brought her back and they built her character from there, she was no longer like that little kid. Like she became like Shadowcat, like a
Oh,
badass.
yeah.
She learned how to fight. She learned how to like Wolverine trained her more specifically on how to fight. She got better at espionage and different types of missions, and just at one point she became like a team leader and really stepped up and became quite the badass. And now you see like that's like set in. Like she's fermented as like a badass. I would be just as confident as Kitty completing a mission as I would with Wolverine. You could send either one of
Oh,
those
yeah.
people in my head, and it would be no different. They
She's
could
highly
just,
competent.
yeah, they could be just as vicious, just as accomplished, and just as straightforward with their onslaught. Like they could bring the heat. Definitely.
Yes, absolutely. And after she kind of phases through and takes out like the leader, we have Pyro showing up and is just like, "Yo, you got a light?" And she's like, "Yeah, yeah, hold on." And she calls Lockheed, and Lockheed comes down, and he's like, "Yes, yeah, bitch, yeah."
He rides that dragon fire and is
Oh,
just
yeah.
like, yeah. And I guess, and I brought this up to you when I first read it originally, is that like, hey, he kind of looks like those guys are pretty much dead.
Oh, yeah, they're toasted.
He says like
They're
he says in there he's trying to get rid of them, like get them trying to run away and stuff, and like scare them off, and they're screaming retreat, but like they look like they're just surrounded by a torrent of fire, and
there's no way
there's
they
no way they're
survive
gonna
that.
survive.
No,
But it's implied that they did. The visually doesn't look that way, but the writing seems like, and especially when they led into this and
just
like the stuff that's
gruesomely like third-degree burns all over
or
their
like
body.
they're immortalated, like just completely was turned to husks of. It seems like that's where the fire's building up around them. But
Gotcha.
oh, I noticed that also Kitty got her sword too. She's now cemented
Yes.
as a pirate captain because she has a rapier.
Yes.
She took it from the leader guy.
She
that
took it
used
from the
before.
leader.
She's like, I
Yeah.
got your fucking fencing sword now. Get off my ship. We're not on your ship. Oh, sorry.
So we're met with after they do that, they pretty much free all the mutants, refugees, and
Very
they're
akin to X-Men issue 1, where the Scott and his team went in and they brought back the mutants as well. This is just another continuation. Even though the stories are different characters, it's still the
It's
greater story that they're
all the
pushing
same
toward.
thing. It's all about the greater good of helping these mutants out.
And I feel the teams are really compartmentalized in a good way, where they feel like, and you'll notice that when we get into Excalibur and the other issues as well, they have their specific purpose, but they played the greater good,
Mhm.
as opposed to the other issues back in the day where, well, not even back in the day, just more recently, where they broke it up to like X-Men Gold, Blue, Purple,
Yeah.
Violet, whatever, like the 9 different X-Men teams.
It's ridiculous.
Black Watch Plaid. It's just convoluted because they were all doing like a thing that never really played to a greater narrative. They all had their own agenda and their own story, and it was just, you're all part of the X-Men, yet what you guys are dealing with really doesn't seem like it could be traced back to helping out any of the other X-Men. You guys are all on your own family agendas or storylines. And this is like Marauder stuff, and what they're doing with X-Men and other teams as well is all plays together, pulls to a greater narrative. That's great. It's really impressive, and I hope that's more to do with because like Hickman is House of X or Head of X.
Head of
And they
X.
hold it down what they're at the top, being the head of things. Like hopefully he's keeping things in line and he has more
Yeah.
sway, like versus what he did with like Secret Wars.
Exactly.
Cool. Fingers crossed. So
Hopefully.
far, it seems like that.
Hopefully. So we're met with the refugees are just like, "Thank you. Who are you?" And we're Shadowcat's just like, "We're the Marauders, bitch. Don't you know it's the Guardians of the Galaxy moment?" She's all like, "Yeah, I had sex with one of the Guardians. I know how this goes."
Yeah, she had a thing with Peter for a while. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
true. And then they made her Star-Lord at one point because she was wearing his,
Star-Lord at
which
one
is
point.
really weird because she dressed just like him. But Star-Lord was never like an iconic character in the sense of like Captain America. So like wearing Star-Lord's garb is just kind of funny.
Yeah.
Like it's just because it's his normal. He doesn't even have a garb in a sense. He's just like, oh, this is my flight jacket and my helmet. And then her wearing it is just like, oh, weird. Like she's trying to cosplay as him or something. I don't know what's going on. But yeah, she has a very campy like point at like, because there's someone there, and was it Rob from Comics Explained actually mentioned it too, where it's like, wait, if these people are in like a internment camp because they're mutants, like someone has like a cell phone just on hand, like just whips it out and starts recording.
Right.
And it's really strange, but she does like this whole like reacting to it, where she's just like, tell everyone that if any mutants are in trouble and they're being held captive, the Marauders have got their back and they're coming for them. Points right at the camera in the dumbest way.
Yeah,
But it works. I mean, I can hate the campiness, but also appreciate it that it was meant to be lighthearted. It wasn't meant to be ham-fisted or anything like that.
exactly.
And I'm digging the sword. I hope she keeps it.
Yeah, for sure. The sword's cool. And we cut to a little bit later. They're back at sea, heading back to Krakoa, and she's painting a flag. And she faces back to the roof where everyone else is. They're all just hanging out. And Kitty and Storm kind of have this moment because they were once kind of like they had like a kind of mentor mentee mentality at the moment, and they're just kind of talking to one another, kind of confiding in one another. And let me mention, like, once again, Loki comes up and flies onto her shoulders, and he has two fingers in his mouth. Who is he like killing? Like, go back up a little bit, right there.
Oh yeah. The things where it's like yeah. So if they didn't if Pyro didn't kill those guys by cooking them alive, then did Loki just eat those fingers?
Some toasty fingers
from some of the Russian soldiers and just leave them there bleeding out, or did he eat the Russian soldiers? Like that part's funny. He always is bringing her weird stuff. He's like half dog, half dragon, space alien creature.
Yes. And we get a moment, a kind of a growing moment here with Kitty, in that
very akin actually to what it was like with was it Polaris and Scott were rehashing at the end of last issue, kind of like it's a breakdown of like what this is the new way for the mutants, but they're also acknowledging what their part is that they're going to play in it and how significant that is. And this is almost kind of like the coalescence of her team coming together, and this is going to be their team going forward, which is interesting to have both Storm and Kitty on a team.
Yeah.
Seems like they're kind of stretching their leader base a little thin with that, but I mean, doubling up their leader base a little too much. Like, I feel like Kitty and Storm could easily run their own team of ragtag people pretty well. But, hey, more power to them to have like I guess the Marauders are supposed to be very versatile. So, I mean, Storm is one of the most versatile mutants you could have.
Sure.
So why not? But fair enough. I dig it. The one thing I don't dig, I mean, I do dig the logo because you get this. You see what she was putting together as a flag. You get this huge mutant Marauder flag where it's just like a skull with an X on it, like the Marauders version of the Jolly Roger. And I dig that. But what I don't dig is it in the title word Marauder.
Yeah.
Where they supplement the word with the word Marauders with like instead of actually using it's like the proper letter, it's like an A. Yeah. So one of the A's in Marauders, when she says it when they're being recorded, is just straight a skull.
Yeah, and it's on the title too, I believe.
And the title on the actual cover page as well. Yeah. That's used twice, and it's just I could have done without that.
Yes.
That's like some weird over-branding stuff.
A little silly, but yes, we get a moment with Iceman, and Iceman just like, where are we going, Kitty? And she's just like, anywhere we want to, bitch. We're the Guardian. Wait, no, not the Guardians. Not that. That was my last. That was the last thing. She keeps doing that. She keeps going back to that.
We're the Marauders of the mutants.
And then, but
of the mutant galaxy.
She says, do me a favor. Call me Kate. No more Kitty. No more Kitty Pryde.
And they still fuck it up because there's some issue. I'm still calling her Kitty. I'll call her Shadow Cat. I'll call her all that stuff. Kate. It's
Kate.
Like,
Hey,
I'm
Kate.
Beckinsale. Please call me that. Like Kate. Come up with it. She could at least came up with a mutant like new moniker or something like that. Or she could have went Apocalypse's route and she's like, I'm just a letter.
Yeah.
Just call me for sure. I'm Special K.
Special K coming at you with my dragon that eats fingers.
Eats fingers and helps Pyro murder people.
Yes.
Not murder people.
Yes. And then we are left with a little bit of gossip from Bar Sinister via the Red Diamonds.
I almost jumped the gun with her.
Yes.
This is the Sinister dossier, I admit. Yeah, this is the secret Sinister's what's happening around Krakoa and what he's been taking note of.
Yeah, and it's just what's happening in these. So we get like a few secrets of what's going on throughout Bar Sinister, kind of just teasing you of like what's happening. Nothing really. What's a big takeaway? Because I'm not really getting a big takeaway from any of these secrets.
It wasn't. It just felt like he's trying to test the structure and the I guess you could say the defense or the overall wholeness of what Krakoa is and what they're trying to do with their mutant
Mm-hmm.
philosophy moving forward. He's trying to look and see if he can poke any holes through it or if there's anything of note that he seems to be off because he's not privy to a lot of the stuff that Charles and Magneto and Moira are talking about and a lot of their little actual true motives are. I mean, he gets enough of what Charles wants to do with Krakoa and with the Krakoan um, flowers, but he knows that there's also more going on behind that, and he doesn't quite understand what it is. And it seems like a lot of his musing here is like trying to figure out who 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 is someone he could probably keep tabs on to find out more information.
Mm-hmm.
What are some flaws within Krakoa that maybe he could use to his advantage later? But all of it, it just seems like it's all little bits of tidbits that maybe will play a greater part later. Well, will play a greater part later on, but we're not getting anything concrete here. It's just like just Sinister looking at something, going, "Oh, I'll have to remember this," and then he writes it down. Yeah, but that's pretty much it. Nothing really too.
That is it, and that concludes this issue number 1 of Marauders. Now, what was your favorite moment of this issue?
Marauders. Yeah, the gun being phased between the two legs
Oh
and the
yeah,
guys
that
now
was
being like
awesome. Yeah.
a makeshift version of conjoined twins. Like, that was rough. That was not. I was not expecting Kitty to do something like that. I mean, sure she like breaks arms and busts nose and like blackens eyes and stuff, but I had never seen anything do like those guys are gonna need surgery or amputated legs.
Because that's like that chunk is gone.
Yeah, the gun
It's
was
gone.
like the rifle butt was in like that dude's kneecap.
Yeah, so
That
like part of that kneecap's gone, part of that muscle is gone, and part of all of those tendons are gone. It's over. It's over.
yeah, it's never anything good when you have whole parts of cartilage replaced by metal that isn't there to supplement the weight of the cartilage. It's not like you're getting a metal rod in your leg.
No.
You're getting a metal gun in your leg. That's not supposed to be there.
No.
But that's my standout moment. I like that the best because like her throwing down right there isolated how much of a badass she was and how good she is to be the leader of the Marauders in the way they're being used. And I like how they're like that special like ragtag group of people, just like we got to get out there, we got to go behind enemy lines, we got to sneak into Vietnam, and we got to get back our people. It's good, and they're rolling around in their boat. That's like a very traditional boat, kind of an old school boat. It's not too. I bet it's souped up on the inside, but on the outside, it seems like it's more of like a just like a basic boat traveling around inconspicuously. And that's going to be interesting how they use that or what plays into it. I hope there's like secret reveal that the boat has like an onboard weapon system that's like really badass, like transforms into all these guys.
That'd be cool.
Yeah, they're like, call the boat, we need it, and it just like pulls up and just starts shooting. We got backup. But yeah, that was my takeaway. What about you?
That was good. I enjoyed the Pyro Lockheed team up. That was amazing. Just fire on fire. Anything fire related is always good. Just him. I still think those soldiers are dead, for sure.
Oh yeah.
Like there's no way they survived. But ultimately going through this issue, like hearing this podcast just now, my favorite moments are just Lockheed with the random like, where'd you get that? Where'd you get that body part?
Yeah, and those are easy to miss. Going through, you wouldn't notice them really. Like it's like, oh well, okay, he ate that bird, but then it's like, oh, the fingers like hanging in there, and like I totally forgot about that. Like I didn't even really register with me like going through. I think I might have caught it the first time it said something about it, but then after coming back through and reading it again, I almost missed it. Like it's just a little subtle thing where you just pay attention to what Lockheed's doing, like see how he works with Pyro, see how he reacts,
Yeah.
see the things he like just does for Kitty, and it's like really just amusing all the way. That's always been Lockheed's thing. He's always been kind of like a quasi joke throwaway character.
Sure.
It was always him and like Warlock for the New Mutants. Like they were always like the weird, jokey mascot characters.
Yeah.
Like I don't know. It's it's strange that he's survived all this time, but at the same time, I'm happy with it. You can keep Lockheed around.
Mhm.
As weird out of place as he is, that gives him a place, I guess, in the weirdness of the mutant world.
Yeah. For sure. And that is it for this Marauders. But next week we will be talking about our next issue, our next time on Podcast of X, we will be talking about nailed it.
Nailed it. You did. You got it. That was perfect. That was beautiful.
We were going to be talking about Excalibur. We're going to be talking about the Braddocks. We're going to be getting down on a little bit of Captain Britain, a little bit of Psylocke. We're going to get to see some Rogue and some Gambit again, finally.
Hopefully this won't sway people away, because Excalibur has a bit of a notorious background. Those issues were always, especially in the older X-Men, were always out there. The Excalibur team was always the who's who of like weird X-Men repurposing characters.
It is, and it seems to be following suit in these newer ones as well, I would say, sort of.
So yeah, Excalibur will or will not, or will Pete Wisdom join us next week? The man who can make energy daggers for fingers and then throw.
Yes. Ooh, yes.
You know, all the Excalibur classics. We're gonna bring them all back.
You'll see him next time on Podcast of X. But I'm Kyle. I'm with Danny. Catch us next time. The robots will kill you. So go out there and have a good life. See you next time. Peace. Thanks for listening. If you like this episode, we are going back through our classic episodes and uploading them onto YouTube in what we are calling Podcast of X Classics. So be sure to be on the lookout for more classic episodes. And be sure to check out freespeechgeek.com.